Hello, gang. It is the week of March 25th through 29th, the week after spring break. Hopefully, you're feeling more rejuvenated, refreshed, and ready to finish this semester strong. This week, your assignments are to read Chapter 3, which is Designing the Qualitative Study. This will talk to you a bit about how to lay out your study and how to put those pieces together. And then mini project number 2, which is your introduction draft. That's due by Sunday at midnight. Now, keep in mind, this is an introduction draft. This is a first draft. Again, we're working on the process and getting to that final project. Your introduction should be typically, there are 2, maybe 3 pages at max. You should have some literature to go with it because that's what sparks your idea of why you want to study this. If you are going to make some claims, if you are going to state what you believe is the reality, you need to have some scholarly research to back that up, but you don't need a ton of literature for this. It's not a literature review. This is very, very different. But that literature is kind of going to spark why you're interested in it. It's going to talk about what the question is. It's going to talk about what is missing, where the gap is in the research, and that's why you're wanting to conduct this study, to fill that gap. Okay, so Chapter 3, and then in your introduction draft by Sunday, March 31st at midnight. Okay, I will be out of town Friday through Sunday. I'm going to a conference, so I will be available via email, but I won't be in the office those dates. So, speaking of my conference, I told you that I would visit with you a little bit about coding this week. I had a student ask me about it. And honestly, it was a relatively new term to me in terms of qualitative research, because when I think of coding, it's in the quantitative sense, and it's done with a content analysis. And in a content analysis, what you're doing is you go through your literature review, you do the research, and you determine the codes. So, for example, I did a content analysis, and I was looking at how social media is used in athletics websites, and how the Sports Information Office is using social media. And I came up with certain codes, the things that I was looking for. They were using the different types of social media, and were they using it for engagement, for ticket sales, for promotion, or for interaction, to kind of do some environmental scanning. And so those were the codes that I came up with, and then I went through and I looked at the different web pages to see, first of all, which types of social media they were using. And then I was looking at how were they using it. Was it for interaction? Was it for sales? Was it for promotion? And then I might have looked at placement, where it was on the page, because that kind of, so the code was emphasis. It was top, middle, bottom. That showed how much emphasis they were placing on it. Was there an icon with it? Those types of things. And so that's that's content analysis, how you do the coding. In qualitative research, when you're talking about interviews, the term I've always been most familiar with is themes. You're looking for specific themes. And so I went through and I looked at your text. It's pages 181 to 195 if you're really interested in this idea of coding, and did a little more reading on it. And again, I've had several qualitative classes, and coding wasn't really discussed in them. They always talked about themes. But the way your text talks about it is almost like you're taking those interviews, and that's becoming your content analysis. So remember, I said you get your codes from the literature review in a content analysis and a quantitative approach. And a qualitative analysis, that literature review is the transcripts. You're reading the transcripts, and that's helping you come up with the codes. But you get your codes a little bit earlier than that in interviewing, because you can look at the questions that you're asking, and those more or less become your codes. So, for example, in the paper I'm presenting this weekend, I'm talking about play-by-play in a digital age. One of the questions was, how do you prepare for a game? So that first code might be preparation. The next question was, what has worked for you in your preparation and calling a game, and what hasn't? So my code might be successes and failures. The next one is most difficult aspect of being a sportscaster, so that one might be difficulty. The next one is what's the best part, so best part might be the code. Another one is, what kinds of classes would you recommend for someone wanting to be a sportscaster? Classes. The next one is what kinds of activities. That code might be activities. And then as I'm reading through their responses, I start looking for themes. For example, under the classes, a lot of them said they needed to take English classes. Somebody said, or several said they needed to take writing classes. Someone else said, or several other people said public speaking or speech and debate. But then we start looking at those as the themes. So, they may not have said take English classes, but they might have said, American literature, so they learn more about what's happening. Grammar classes, those types of things that might follow under English. So do you follow that the coding in qualitative research when you do interviews, really the code comes from the types of questions you're asking, or just a sub phrase from the question, and then you're looking for the themes that follow in there. Because then what happens in the content analysis and that quantitative approach, you count how many times those responses are there under the codes, and those become the most popular ones. Same thing here. You've got the codes, which are the questions. The themes come from their responses, and you start counting those themes. So if the most prevalent question or prevalent classes they said to take are the ones that follow under that theme of writing, or under public speaking, or under radio, those are the themes that they view are the most important. So hopefully that gives you some clarification on coding and developing themes from qualitative research. If you have questions about that, you can feel free to shoot me a line. But again, pages 181 to 195, they kind of spell this out for you, lay it out pretty clearly. So, okay. Again, this week, week 10, March 25th through 29th, Chapter 3, Designing the Qualitative Study, and mini project number 2, your introduction draft, due by Sunday at midnight. Got questions? Give me a call. Have a great week.